Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob DeGroot, and I'm your host today. I'm with the United States Geological Survey, and I work with the USGS-managed ShakeAlert earthquake early warning system, which is currently operational in California, Oregon, and Washington. And for the Earthquake Country Alliance, I am the chair of the Education and Public Information Center Network, otherwise known as the EPIcenter Network, and that's what I'll refer to it for the rest of today. And during my career, I've actually worked at 2 free choice learning environments and also participated with a third. I was at Little Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, working as an educator for a few years. I also spent some time at the California Science Center in Los Angeles as an educator, and then I did some resources development for exhibits at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. And we're here today to talk about the role of free choice learning environments in the upcoming International ShakeOut Day on the 20th of October, 2022 at 10:20 a.m. Just wanted to say a few words about who you'll be hearing from today, and actually much more important than the things I have to say. I'd like to introduce you to Mariah Jenkins. She's with the United States Geological Survey, and she'll talk about free choice learning environments. And from now on, we'll refer to them as FCLE just to make it easier. And she will talk about these in sort of in a very broad sense and really give you a sense of the sort of work we've been doing over the years to better understand how earthquakes and related phenomena are used or talked about in free choice learning environments, but also a discussion about the potential application of preparedness related activities in these environments. So Mariah will have a lot to say. Also, we'll hear from Dr. Samuel Nurako, who is from the Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. He will speak to how libraries can serve as indispensable free choice learning venues. And then lastly, but not least important, our colleague Jenny Crane from the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, who will share the FCLE ShakeOut Toolkit and also science activities. So before we get started today, I'd like to give you a bit of an advanced organizer. And advanced organizers are used in education to get people thinking about things, to bring out prior knowledge, to kind of get the juices flowing. And we're going to be breaking out, the most important of today's activities is to go into several breakout groups to discuss some very important questions about how to do ShakeOut in your free choice learning environment. And so these are the questions. Sharon is actually going to put them into the chat box so that they'll be there during the entire session today. And of course, she'll also be putting several links and such into the chat box as well as I talk about different things. And the last thing is, if you haven't done ShakeOut before, if you're new to ShakeOut, then the link to register is at the bottom of the page. And in fact, you need to re-register every year. So take an opportunity to do that. So you'll see these questions again, I promise, but these are just to get you thinking for the breakout sessions. So a little bit about the actual Earthquake Country Alliance, and this is our host for today's, or our sponsor for today's presentation. The ECA is a network of thousands of public and private grassroots leaders from across the state and other places. And it is made up of regional alliances shown on the map, state of California map on the right. And there are several committees within the ECA that serve sort of specific specialist groups and also have some general functions, and we'll talk a bit about them later. There are several activities of the ECA. There are, sort of, as I said earlier, committees that develop resources and deliver programs. There are regional groups around the state that hold meetings and workshops and do on-the-ground outreach activities. And the funding for the ECA comes from FEMA, and that money is dispersed through the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, or Cal-OES. So I mentioned earlier about these outreach committees, and there are several of them, and you might have an interest in one or more of these, and there's ample opportunity to participate. So we encourage you to get involved. Of course, this particular session today is focused on the EPIcenter Network, which is one of the sector-based outreach committees. There are also several bureaus, 3 bureaus, that focus on ECA-wide activities in the areas of events, participation, and media, and these bureaus support all of the sector-based committees. The messaging for the ECA is really organized around the 7 steps to earthquake safety. And in the case of if you happen to live in California, Oregon, or Washington, and you are potentially receiving alerts from the ShakeAlert earthquake early warning system, you would potentially be involved in step 5, where you might get an alert on your phone, or you feel shaking and you take a protective action. But there are several places within the 7 steps, including step 2, step 5, step 6, and step 7, where potentially earthquake early warning may play a role. That is if you're in California, Oregon, or Washington. There are many materials that the ECA provides. Of course, there's been a proliferation of resources in many different languages. And so just wanted to give you a flavor for what's available, and all of these resources are available on the ECA website, and you can learn more about this as well. So of course, we asked the question about, why do we drop, cover, and hold on? And this is the focus of step 5. It's the actual action. And there is a considerable amount of social science and other evidence, the fact that this is one of the best ways to protect yourselves during an earthquake shaking. And it's the message that we share across the ECA. In fact, it's also the key preparedness, the key protective action that we share in our messages, in our information that we share through ShakeAlert. So the one piece that we want to focus on is this opportunity to practice earthquake safety. This is what the ShakeOut is. International ShakeOut Day is a chance for people to participate and to practice this particular protective action, but also doing all the activities around it that support that. And also, one thing to be really clear about is that ShakeOut doesn't have to be on the 20th of October at 10:20 a.m. in 2022. It can be any day. So you can do a ShakeOut drill any day of the week, any time of day. In fact, we have some really good evidence emerging from studies that are being done through closed circuit television studies that certainly people are pretty good at doing the earthquake drills in organized environments, like at work or potentially at school. But the whole idea about participating or practicing in situations where people are in novel environments, like they're at the mall or at the zoo or wherever, this could present some interesting situations. And so people would need to know how to do ShakeOut or doing the drop, cover, and hold on drill via ShakeOut through these novel environments. And this is part of the reason why I think personally that free choice learning environments are so critical for this. So again, just some basic things about how to protect yourself, drop, cover, and hold on. I think it's all pretty clear from the graphic. And also adapting to the situation. Again, we talked a little bit about that earlier, but here there are also other ways to protect yourself during earthquakes depending on your situation. Of course, when should you protect yourself? I mentioned this earlier. When you feel shaking, very important. If you're participating in a drill, we hope you participate in that, taking the action. But also, if you happen to live in California, Oregon, or Washington, that if you get a ShakeAlert powered alert on your phone or through some other means, that you take that protective action, drop, cover, and hold on. And particularly in California, the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services has put considerable support. They're a critical partner to the USGS and the development of earthquake early warning in California. And they are promoting earthquake early warning in California through Earthquake Warning California. So you might have had access to some of those resources if you're in the state of California. So again, ShakeOut, International ShakeOut Day on October 20th. You can learn more, register at shakeout.org. There are lots of options for drills. We can talk more about these later. There are also lots of resources to give presentations on how to do different types of drills for different age groups, age-appropriate related resources. So we're here today to talk about one of the sector-based committees and how free choice learning environments, FCLEs, can be a part of the ShakeOut and other earthquake-related activities. There are lots of things you can do. And just very quickly, and I know that time is short, but the EPIcenter Network has a mission to promote earthquake and tsunami risk reduction in free choice learning environments and for their visitors. We realize that your institutions have a deep understanding of your audiences. You have really hard-won ties with your communities. You provide reliable information. You have an established brand. You have a very talented staff. There are all kinds of ways that you can contribute to this. So we think that FCLEs are ideal venues for ShakeOut related activities. This is a picture of our webpage. This is our URL. Sharon will put it into the chat box. Just very, very quickly, we do have sort of a description of what these sorts of places are, what epicenters are. And one of the critical pieces of this statement is that we try to share the same messaging and the same actions in multiple environments in a consistent way. And so that people know what to do if they feel shaking, or if you're in California, Oregon, and Washington, get a ShakeAlert powered alert if you happen to be in the big gallery at a museum, or if you're in the bathroom at a museum, you'll know what to do. So with that, I would love to turn over today's session to Mariah Jenkins from the U.S. Geological Survey. Mariah, just tell me to advance the slides as you want to go through. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Mariah Jenkins, and I'm a research and operations assistant with the United States Geological Survey. I work with the Joint Committee for Communication, Education, and Outreach with ShakeAlert. And through my work, I've gotten involved with and become a member of the EPIcenter group, which you'll be hearing from more today. And today I'll be presenting on a ShakeOut in free choice learning environments as untapped opportunities for engagement and impact. So much of the work I'll be discussing today is derived from a series of long-term projects I've been working on with Dr. Danielle Sumi of IRIS, as well as Dr. Aronde Drakes, Dr. Sarah McBride, and Dr. Bob DeGroot, all of the USGS. And just for context, I mentioned ShakeAlert, and it's been mentioned earlier today, but this is the earthquake early warning system for the West Coast of the United States that's managed by the USGS and is operational in California, Oregon, and Washington. And ultimately, this system aims to mitigate damage from earthquakes by notifying individuals in advance of an earthquake that's already in progress. So giving folks just enough time to take a protective action, such as drop cover and hold on. And our research has looked into the importance of free choice learning environments as it relates to earthquakes and earthquake early warning and preparedness and in general. So our work aims to set the foundation for building earthquake early warning and preparedness education into free choice learning environments. So the efforts taken in this research aim to sort of complement preparedness initiatives such as ShakeOut. So this is a really exciting and timely opportunity for us to talk about our research and increase participation in drills and events like ShakeOut at the same time. Next slide. So just a really brief overview in this presentation. I'll talk a bit about why free choice learning matters so much in our work, and then I'll highlight a bit of the recent research I've been working on as it relates to drills and education planning, and then we'll just end with some conclusions and future directions. All right, so what are free choice learning environments and why do we focus on this? We've already kind of used this term a couple times here, and I'm sure many of you on this call are experts and know a lot more about this than I do, but just for review's sake, in our work, we use the term free choice learning environment to refer to places that promote lifelong learning and interest-based learning. So these are communities of learning that you all are familiar with: museums, libraries, national parks, pretty much anywhere that people have the choice in whether or not they attend and get to learn about different subjects while they're in those spaces. So in order to increase preparedness, we want to always reach the broadest audience possible through a multitude of pathways. And free choice learning environments are such an exciting chance to sort of meet people where they're at. So our work focuses primarily on the ways that education through free choice learning can empower people in taking preparedness behaviors. But it's really, really important to note that ShakeOut is something that every individual within a free choice learning environment can support. So no matter what your role is in an institution, ShakeOut is relevant from safety and security to facilities and operations to education and collections. So everyone has a role and a very critical one at that. So next slide. So on the topic of critical roles, these are like the 3 key points that I really want us to focus in on here. The first being that most people learn about science throughout their lifetime. Up to 95% of our learning happens outside of school. That's sort of intuitive, but it makes sense right there. And then free choice learning environments are also really uniquely positioned to increase hazard literacy in communities, as they often focus on place-based and locally relevant learning, so people can really feel connected to the content that they're exploring. And the decision to act and prepare is really shaped through community, which free choice learning environments are great places that cultivate community on that local level. So for us, we have this really exciting opportunity to align our education initiatives with these existing avenues, the spaces that are already talking about earthquakes, and using this as core parts of their education approaches. So for us in our work, we decided to analyze the existing and past earthquake exhibits in the US to kind of better understand what is already out there. So just as an overview of our research, next slide. All right, so one of our core projects was fourfold. First, we did a data collection. We looked at different free choice learning environments in the US, collected some basic information on all of them. And this was a really inclusive approach. We included all kinds of museums and national parks and science centers. We even included rest stops, just any different type of place that folks might be learning about, or places that have earthquake exhibits. And then we collected information on each of these exhibits, from their name, the location, how long they were up and active for. We also gathered information on a key question, which was what earthquake concepts were highlighted, what preparedness content was included. And from there, we did some case studies and interviews. And I could really get into the weeds of this work, but we're on a time crunch here. This work is also published. So at the end of this, at the end of my talk, I can share a link to this work if anyone wants to like dive deeper into some of our core findings. But here I'll just summarize some of the top level themes for us on our next slide here. So from our work and our analysis, we found that exhibits mostly fit into 3 sort of categories, or no, 6 categories here, which were included place-based plate tectonics, history and anniversary themes, trails, earthquake engineering and simulation, art and personal narratives, and then earthquakes as it relates to other hazards. We looked at over 150 different free choice learning environments with exhibits, and of that 150, only 28 displays in the US included earthquake preparedness information in the last 20 years. So it's important to note that that 28 figure doesn't capture all of the ways people learn in free choice learning environments. So, you know, there could be conversations with docents or weekend events that may not have been captured in that number, but overall, as a standing feature of those exhibits, preparedness content wasn't a huge component overall. And of that 150, only 5 of those displays were permanent displays when it came to the West Coast that we really focused on there. So from this, it's really clear that places are already talking about earthquakes and are really interested in these conversations, but there's a really huge gap in drawing the connection to preparedness. So for those spaces, it's sort of seen as untapped potential, and ShakeOut is one really exciting way that we can address this gap. So overall, it's really important that we think about how we present materials in the spaces in which we do that. And we really want to overall reach a wide range of people in groups from a variety of identities and communities. And free choice learning environments are a great way to do that. So this study is intended to produce tangible outcomes, such as materials that you all can use to teach about earthquake preparedness, and also encourage participation in events like ShakeOut. So one example of this you'll hear about today later on is our ShakeOut Toolkit, which has some really exciting resources that are already available to all of you to help you put on a successful earthquake drill. And beyond that, we're super excited about the opportunity to build relationships with more FCLEs and more so just getting to learn from all of you. And I'm really looking forward to our discussions later today that sort of help us gain insight from all of you. So in conclusion, for our next slide here, we have a lot of exciting research going on in this area. And overall, free choice learning environments play a really vital role in our communities. There's such an exciting opportunity to increase preparedness and participation, and we hope to continue to build reciprocal relationships with all of you. So I think I'm going to try to wrap it up here, but thank you all so much. I really appreciate the chance to speak with all of you today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you throughout this webinar. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Mariah? Feel free to put them into the chat or raise your hand.
You can always ask later as well. And so with that, thank you very much, Mariah. Great presentation. And I'd like to introduce you all to Dr. Samuel Cornelius Nairko. He's a postdoctoral researcher at the Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. And Sammy's also one of our esteemed ShakeAlert science education researchers. And Sammy's been doing a lot of really great work in the area of trade books and free choice learning and free choice learning resources and implications for ShakeOut education. So Sammy, it's all yours. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Bob. Hello, everyone. Glad to have you all here for this webinar. I will be talking about the role of free choice learning resources such as library trade books in earthquake education, especially their implications for safety, protective actions, and ShakeOut activities. My name is Samuel Nyako, and I've been doing this work with Daniel Sumi. We also want to acknowledge that this study was initiated as a result of some of the concerns raised by librarians regarding their role in ShakeOut and earthquake education from last year's webinar. So thank you so much for bringing up such an important topic. Next slide. So why are libraries important to earthquake education? And the reasons are very simple. First, libraries provide a free choice environment where people are able to construct knowledge about earthquake concepts independent of any directions or teaching. And it also serves as a space for people who resort to books for information, people that Danielle and I call them bookworms. And then second, libraries provide learning information and resources, especially on earthquake, to all manner of people. Our quick search showed that there are about 280 books and other online resources on earthquake alone in American libraries, including that for early learners, such as preschoolers. And finally, libraries provide a venue for diversity and inclusion by providing free access to everyone, irrespective of age, economic status, and other barriers to accessibility related to other learning resources, such as journals. So libraries can be very powerful source of tool for people to learn both accurate knowledge and misconceptions about earthquakes, because these environments are usually free choice and there are no teachers or no facilitators there to help guide these learners. So it is important that we know what is within these sort of books within libraries. Next slide. So with all the potential benefits of libraries in earthquake education, we wanted to find out what these trade books in libraries provide to readers and learners in terms of earthquake safety and protective actions. So what we did is we analyzed 50 books from about 4 libraries in the US and identified that these books provide important suggestions for safety and protection measures. We identified that three main safety ideas from these books. The first is on preparedness, which emphasize safety actions that need to be taken before an earthquake strikes. And then we also identified protective actions that emphasize both human and automated actions to seek physical and emotional protection during earthquake. And then the third is recovery, which refers to activities that can be done to normalize after an earthquake. And one of the most interesting findings in the books is the emphasis on drop, cover, and hold on as an important feature for preparedness. So all the books emphasize drop, cover, and hold as important preparations for people in earthquake-prone areas. Next slide. Yeah, so I'm going to talk more about these 3 categories or themes that we identified from these books. So for preparedness, the books emphasize 4 main actions. The first one is structural preparedness, and then settlement planning. When we say structural preparedness, we mean architectural and constructional designs that can withstand earthquake, while urban settlement planning emphasizes the planning and design of settlements such as cities and towns to protect social amenities when an earthquake kind of occurs. So if you look at the figure there, we identified from about 27 books talking about structural preparedness, and then we also had about 19 books talking about urban settlement planning. Now, the others are creating community connections, which emphasizes plans to keep people in contact or together when an earthquake happens. And the fourth one is training community members about safety protocols, like I mentioned earlier, such as drop, cover, and hold on, and then how to use safety equipment. And then finally, plans to store home supplies is also very much emphasized by these books, that one of the major ways to prepare for an earthquake is having supplies, home supplies such as food and other materials that you use daily at home. Next slide. Now for protective action, we identified that a lot of the books emphasized manual protective actions, which are the physical protective actions that can be taken by people to seek protection when an earthquake strikes, whether you are indoors, outdoor, or in a moving object. So some of the main things that these books highlighted were, hide under a table or similar shelter, drop, cover, and hold, and then so many others. There were also some misconceptions like stand in the doorway or rush outside or run outside, when buildings are crumbling, which is really interesting to see in some of these books. And then the second one is automated protective activities put in place to trigger physical automated responses during earthquakes. So examples include automated earthquake alerts, such as ShakeAlert, and then automated doorways and utilities that can shut off to reduce injuries and damage. And then the final one, which was really interesting finding, was emotional support or affective protective actions, which simply means providing or having emotional capabilities for protection, such as encouraging readers to not panic during an earthquake or sing their favorite song, when they are under pressure, when, the shaking is going on. This was really interesting because you don't find a lot of, earthquake protective activities talking about the strength of, emotions during an earthquake. So this was a really interesting finding for us from these books. Next slide. The next one, recovery actions, mainly related to ways for damage control, such as checking yourself and taking care of yourself, and then checking for those around you. This was really important because, you know, when an earthquake strikes and you know, all the damage and everything has been caused, we are in a rush to, you know, find out what is happening to our relatives or family. But these books emphasize that, you know, checking yourself is very important. And then after doing that, taking care of yourself and checking for those around you is what should follow. And then there is also mention of support, which emphasizes community efforts to provide emotional, medical, and economic support after an earthquake. Next slide. All right, so what are some of the implications of these findings on ShakeOut? First, almost all the books, we identified from about 47 of the books having information on drop, cover, and hold on as the thing to do in an earthquake, which was really good to see. However, these books contain information that are not time-based, which makes it difficult for people to know what to do at particular times. For example, if you just put it in a book that, you know, prepare household supplies, when is the time to, you know, get these household supplies? So there is the need for future trade book writers to be more explicit about time-based safety measures, and then encourage early warning systems such as ShakeAlert. From the 50 books that we analyzed, we only had about 5 or 6 books talking about ShakeAlert. So, you know, future writers should consider this in their future writings. Also, there are a lot of misconceptions relating to drop, cover, and hold on, with some books just emphasizing hold on or just drop or only cover, right? When you say people should just drop, that doesn't encompass all the safety measures, the drop, cover, and hold on safety measures. So these are misconceptions that we identified in the books. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, some books also encourage people to stand at doorways. These are all misconceptions that are still existing in books. So we need to be careful about you know, some of the things that we take from these books. Also, these books mostly emphasize ableist ideas and do not cover people with disabilities. Only 3 out of 50 books provided some preparedness measure for people with disabilities and none for protective action. So how do you tell someone in a wheelchair to drop, cover, and hold on during an earthquake? So that is another thing that, you know, future writers should look at, just not, you know, emphasizing the ableist ideas, but also bringing in the diversity and inclusion perspective in these books. And then finally, some of the books highlight the plight of Chinese Americans during the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, which highlights, you know, racial and ethnic profiling even in times of disasters. So, you know, even in times of disasters and when people are dying and with our earth shaking, there are still, you know, racist ideas going on, which we think is very unfortunate to, you know, come up. So the key takeaway here is that libraries are great avenues to learn about earthquake safety measures, but we also need to be careful about the kind of knowledge we construct from these books, and that activities such as ShakeOut drills will be very helpful supplement to this kind of books. So we must not rely on only the books, but we must also rely on activities such as ShakeOut drills to get the right conception, especially when it comes to drop, cover, and hold on. Next slide. Thank you, and questions.
Sammy, I would actually just like to mention a couple of things really quickly. Thank you for your reference to last year's webinar that we had for EPICenters. That is available on the EPICenter website. And I was really happy that Sammy mentioned the fact that this presentation was a result of feedback from last year's set of presentations. And the second point I'd just like to raise is that we know that libraries have a lot of potential, and we know that, again, we know that all the institutions have a lot of potential, but we know that libraries are great venues for so many different things, for so many different people, no matter age, background, whatever. And so we're really looking forward to Sammy's results in this work that he's doing. We're hoping to apply them across our different programs and projects. So Thank you, Sammy. And I'd like to open it to any other questions for this presentation. You can always ask later too, no problem. Sammy, thanks so much. Appreciate it. I'd like to now introduce Jenny Crane from the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. She's the Inclusion and Engagement Specialist. She's also a member of the ShakeAlert education team. She's been working with us for a number of years now in the development of resources for free choice learning environments. We're spreading ShakeAlert across the 3 ShakeAlert states, California, Oregon, and Washington. And Jenny's been in the lead in producing those resources, and her team is fabulous. So I'd like to turn it over to Jenny. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks everybody for sitting through this, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to learn all about ShakeOut. So yeah, as Bob said, my name is Jenny and I work with OMSI, and we have a team of folks who have been participating in ShakeAlert and ShakeOut. And I just want to briefly acknowledge some of the other OMSI folks who are here on this call today. And in the interest of time, I'll just invite them, if you're open to it, to introduce yourself in the chat. So we have Grant Vonderchek, who is our safety and security manager. We have Marcy Benny, who manages our research and evaluation team. Carla Haran, who is one of our bilingual evaluators, and Raquel Stewart, who is a bilingual educator and program developer. So I mentioned them all, in part to give credit, but also just to acknowledge that putting together a ShakeOut event is kind of a big lift, and it takes a lot of cross-departmental collaboration. So I encourage you to, involve your colleagues in putting together an event. So next slide, please. I hope that Sammy and Mariah have inspired you and given you some, motivation for why free choice learning environments are such powerful places to do ShakeOut activities. I'm going to give you some more specific ideas that hopefully will empower you to actually, implement stuff. So ShakeAlert is or ShakeOut is gonna look different in every institution, right? So it's not gonna be the same everywhere, and there's a couple different major ways that you can participate in ShakeOut. One is by holding a staff drill. So many of us participated in earthquake drills as kids at school. As we're adults and in the workplace, it's less common to have earthquake drills, but it's just as important, especially for those of us who work in sort of non-traditional office settings like a museum or a library or a national park, where you can't just immediately dive under a desk. So OMSI holds an earthquake drill every fall as part of our annual all staff emergency training. And during this drill, OMSI staff get to practice their earthquake protective actions in some very odd places, like inside a planetarium and in an exhibit hall. And in doing that, you develop muscle memory and the ability to respond, wherever you are, even if you're not in the standard desk and table environment. Another advantage of holding a staff drill is that in the event of an earthquake happening while you have visitors or guests or patrons on site, your staff automatically know how to respond, and they can model the correct behavior for your guests and help keep people calm and responding appropriately. And note, as Bob said, that you do not have to have your staff drill on ShakeOut Day. Like, we have ShakeOut Day every October, and that's an opportunity for people to kind of rally around a particular date or a week to practice their earthquake protective actions. But if it works better for your site to have your staff emergency earthquake drill in January, have it in January. You can still register your event on shakeout.org. Next slide. So in addition, or separately from having a staff drill, you can also have a public drill. This is a little more ambitious, but it's a great opportunity to leverage your position as a public space and a trusted source of information in your community, and just engage diverse and broad learners in practicing earthquake protective actions. So here's an example of a library in Santa Rosa that had a ShakeOut earthquake drill that included patrons. For larger spaces with lots of people, of course, there are challenges related to logistics and communication and organizing a site-wide earthquake drill. This is something we haven't yet done at OMSI, but we're going to try it this year. And our approach this year is to have a smaller space of the museum designated as our sort of earthquake protective actions practice space. So there'll be educators there explaining what's going on. There'll be an opportunity for visitors to learn about different ways to drop, cover, and hold on in some different kinds of spaces. And then they'll have the opportunity to practice it and even be a little bit debriefed afterwards. So again, lots of creative ways to implement this. It's not a one size fits all. You don't have to do it, you know, the way you've seen it in school. You can get creative. Next slide. So another way ShakeOut can look at your site is by having educational activities. This can go along with a drill or it can be separate from a drill. And again, this is going to look different depending on the kinds of educational activities you do at your site. So at OMSI last year for ShakeOut, because we're a science museum, we had educators out on the floor doing hands-on science demos with visitors all about earthquake science. So visitors got to come learn about magnitude and PNS waves and earthquake early warning. If you're a library, maybe it means having a earthquake themed story time. And Sammy has an amazing resource list of books now that you can, use to help pick books for that event. Or maybe it's a science pub style event or a nature walk, whatever it is that your site specializes in, you can make it about earthquakes. Next slide. And last but not least, we can always engage on the virtual sphere as well. So again, this can look different ways. You could have a live event. I know especially during the pandemic, a lot of sites that were committed to doing a ShakeOut drill every year had a virtual drill on Facebook Live. You could also do a sort of asynchronous thing with postings on Twitter. Last year, the OMSI team put together a little video about featuring how OMSI staff would drop, cover, and hold on in different parts of the museum. So we had them practicing drop, cover, and hold on the submarine dock and in the auditorium and some sort of funny museum specific spaces, and then posted it on Twitter with the invitation for other people to post about where they are practicing drop, cover, and hold on. So lots of different ways to engage. Next slide. So we have put together a whole toolkit full of resources and tools that can hopefully support you in putting together whatever kind of event or participation type you want to put together. So I'm not going to go through this whole toolkit line by line because there's a lot of stuff on there. I will share this link in the chat momentarily, but I want to highlight just a few of the resources that I think are particularly helpful for FCLEs putting together ShakeOut events. One is drill manuals. So this is exactly what it sounds like, a long manual with all the logistical information that you can think of or that you didn't think you could have thought of regarding how to put together a drill. Next slide. Another one is audio files. And Sharon, I don't know if you're able to click on that and actually play it, but this is an example of one of the audio files you can download. You might have to unmute yourself too.
Oh, I'm playing it from my, it's doing something very strange.
Yeah,
to me. I'm
here,
sorry.
hold on. Okay, here now. I've got a backup plan.
That's why we like you, Jenny. Always a backup plan.
All right, let's see. Let's see if you guys can hear this.
No.
Oh, you couldn't hear it? That's so sad. Okay, well, we'll give you the link. Basically, it's an audio file where you hear a voice introducing that this is the ShakeOut earthquake drill to practice your drop, cover, and hold on. And then there's actually earthquake sound effects. This is available in Spanish and English and is a great resource if you're doing an on-site earthquake drill with staff or visitors or both. It's something that you could play over the PA to facilitate the drill itself. Next slide. There we go. And we also have lots and lots of media and graphics that you can use for both digital and print use. So graphics about earthquake protective actions and the different ways to drop, cover, and hold on, promotional materials, posters, social media materials, anything you can think of media-wise. Next slide. And yeah, and a few other resources that are available in that toolkit include videos, activity guides, slide decks, social media content. So again, this is all stuff that you can pick and choose from, and consider it a buffet of resources that you can select to put on the plate to fit the needs of your institution and your organization and what you want to accomplish in ShakeOut. I think I have one more slide. Yeah, and lastly, if you are interested in doing educational activities, particularly hands-on activities related to ShakeOut and earthquake safety, then I highly recommend you visit iris.edu/ShakeAlert. This is a curated set of earthquake education activities. And one cool thing about them is that they're broken up into 5, 15, and 45-minute segments. So you can kind of just pull the right size bite that you want. So if you're just wanting to do demos out on the museum floor, you pull that 5-minute version. And if you are doing a whole like story time program with a more in-depth, classroom-based thing, you can pull the longer version. And I think that's about all I have to share with you. Does anybody have questions they'd like to ask?
Jenny, there was a question in the chat box. Do you have
great.
an example of a checklist for a school?
So I know that there are drill manuals for schools. I don't know if that's what was being asked, but if you go, maybe Sharon can put the link in there, but I know that for ShakeOut at shakeout.org, there are drill manuals for a variety of different types of organizations, including schools.
And the person who asked that question, if you wanted to follow up with that, just go ahead and speak up if you like.
Okay.
Chat your response in the box, and we can address it now or later.
Thank you. I found what I was looking for in the links that was sent.
Great, thanks, Courtney. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So everyone, thank you. Jenny, thanks for a great presentation and all the great work that you're doing with your team at OMSI. And also, if you visit our webpage for the EPIcenter Network on earthquakecountry.org, there is a video that the OMSI team made last year for ShakeOut 2021 that shows doing ShakeOut in a variety of locations throughout OMSI, including the chemistry lab, which I found particularly interesting. And so there are a lot of resources there. And of course, OMSI's work, OMSI is the free choice learning environment that is our lead environment, our lead institution in the ShakeAlert system to put these resources together. And they've produced many fabulous resources and are doing a lot of good research as well. So thank you for all your great work, Jenny. We'd like to move in now to the breakout session. And this is an opportunity to think about those 4 questions. And I'm going to put them up again for you, and they will be in the chat box. And the way this is going to work is that you have a choice to go into a different sessions or different breakout sessions. One of the breakout sessions will focus on libraries. Another one will be for science centers or science museums, as Jenny referred to them, or natural history museums. The third choice is Park Visitor Center. So if you happen to work at a state or a national park or a local park, you're welcome to join that particular group. And group number 4 is any other environment that you might be working in, an art museum or whatever it may be, amusement park. I mean, amusement parks can be a place of this kind of learning as well. So we'll give you the choice now to go ahead and do that. Our breakout sessions will last 20 minutes. And then what we'll do is we'll come back, and the designated person reporter for each of the groups, and we'll let folks decide who that's going to be, will share one highlight from each of the 4 questions. So all 4 groups will share one highlight response from each of the 4 questions asked in the breakout session. So, and again, these questions will be available in the chat box, and also the facilitators for each of the groups will have the questions available to them, and they can prompt you as needed. So with that, Sharon, I guess we're going to transition into the breakouts.
The breakout rooms are now open.
So we're back. I think everyone is mostly back from the breakout sessions. I think we are. I know that we had 4 groups of libraries, science center, natural history museums, park visitor centers, and also others. So the goal here for this about 10 or 15 minutes or so of time and is again to hear what other people had to say, to share some highlights from the 4 questions. They're shown here on the screen. And there might have been a question or two that people wished we would have asked, but didn't. And so that sort of open mic sort of approach is totally fine as well. We do have designated folks from each breakout group to actually report on behalf of that group, just some highlights, maybe one highlight from each question. And then we can open it up to more general questions. Maybe something from another breakout group may have sort of sparked an idea on your part, and that's what we want to hear about. And I said this in our group, but this is not the last time we'll talk. Of course, this recording will be available, but also you can reach out to us and talk to us about planning your drill or another activity that you're doing, promoting your event on social media. There are ways to do that as well. So let's go ahead and do the breakout reports, and we'll start in reverse order. We'll start with group 4, the other group, the other but very important group. So number 4 group, it's all yours.
I wasn't expecting to go first. What a treat, Bob. Okay, so we were the other group. We had a real mix of cool organizations represented, and some of the specific considerations. So for example, we had a representative from a zoo where they've got to worry about dangerous animals and potentially having compromised habitats and getting out. And that's obviously a real concern. Another person who works for homes for adults with intellectual disabilities, where, you know, the focus was really on not so much on training the clients who may have mental and physical barriers to performing the actions on their own, but rather training the staff to be able to take care of themselves and subsequently take care of the clients in the homes. Let's see, we had folks from hospitals and university settings, some concerns about specific types of equipment and securing that, spaces that are hard to drop, recover, and hold on in. And a lot of folks shared challenges with, you know, how do you get staff at a diverse place like a hospital where people, you know, all have different roles that they have to play and can't necessarily just stop what they're doing and practice a drill. You know, how do you get all those folks participating in a drill? So those are some of the challenges and considerations we discussed. As far as ways that folks have participated in ShakeOut in the past, lots of folks have done different drills, including drills that were like combined with a fire drill or another kind of drill. And there was some excitement about trying new types of drills this year. And yeah, and we didn't really get to the inclusive protective actions, except for what I mentioned before about working with adults with intellectual disabilities. So.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Any questions about group number 4, or should we go ahead and move on to number 3? Okay, you can always come back to Jenny later. Let's go to group number 3, Park Visitor Center, park visitor centers, and other types of locations. I know we had some very interesting folks from recreational parks with us. So Mariah, it's all yours.
Yeah, so we focused in, I think, on the last 2 questions more so of what's something new or different. And we even adapted the question a little bit to what's your ideal drill look like, or what would that look like in your space? And one idea that I thought was really interesting that came out of our conversation from Anne or Anna, I don't know which one it is, but was thinking about how we can get sports teams to also participate. So we're thinking of parks and recreation. You can think of Little League or folks just who are using these spaces with their teams, and what would that sort of drill look like, and how could you get people involved? So I think that was one really interesting and unique idea and consideration we talked about. And then also just in general, bringing awareness to earthquakes for folks who come from non-speaking communities, non-English speaking communities, and figuring out different ways that we can better communicate with folks in their native languages. So those were the 2 big focal points of our conversation. If I left anything out, feel free to add it in the chat or come off and speak with us. But yeah, those are some of our core ideas.
Any other feedback from group group number 3. And I forgot to say during Jenny's session, if there was any member of group number 4 who wanted to highlight something that they said that wasn't mentioned, feel free to mention it. Great. You can always come back. So group number 2, the Michelle and Xavier, right? Is that correct? Yes. All yours, friends.
Yeah, hi. I love that question. What's your ideal shakeout look like? We had primarily science centers and natural history museums and a couple of scientists there with us. One of the things that we talked a little bit about is how one of the things that we wanted to get out of this webinar was connections of colleagues and things like that. So that's really nice that this has been able to give some opportunity for that. We have a variety of different specific considerations, mainly like big cavernous halls with not a lot of places to be under. And so we talked a little bit about wanting to watch that OMSI video that's been referenced a few times to get ideas about how we might do a shakeout or what would happen in an earthquake in the planetarium or in one of these exhibit halls. We had a variety of ways that we've participated in shakeouts in the past. Some have been full center drills. Some have staff drills at a different time when the public is there. There's a want, I think, to have the drills happen with the public, and we're still trying to tease out how that could happen. And we liked the idea of having a specific room and having some signage ahead of time and having communications before the event in order to make sure that the public knows what to expect, and having that in multiple languages and having the resources available, closed caption, in order to make sure that things are, the event itself is inclusive. And we talked a lot about what we wanted to try, sort of taking from other people's things that we've tried. So it's really neat to have this forum for being able to learn what other people have done in the past and want to do this year. And I don't know if Xavier, you have anything to add, or anyone else from the group.
No, I think you did a great job, Michelle.
Great. Thank you so much for leading that group.
Thank you.
And any questions for group number 2, science centers and natural history museums? You can always come back. And last but not least, Danielle and Sammy, libraries.
Yeah, we had some librarians coming in, and I think one of the we tackled question 1 and I think question 4, and one of the things that came up was how do we get training for people with disabilities, especially those in wheelchairs, and then anxiety in some of the drills that they've been doing. So I think Sarah gives some really good examples, and I will let her continue from here.
Thank you, Samuel. Yes, we did talk a lot about working with people with disabilities. I work in an independent living center, so it's kind of really top notch on my list of things to learn. One of the things that we discussed is the wheelchair users and their anxiety of protecting their heads and necks from things coming down and what they should and should not do. So that was really eye-opening for me, since I'm not a wheelchair user, but I want to make sure that both staff and those who visit our center, we can work with them and make sure that they feel at ease when an earthquake does happen. Some of the things that I'm going to incorporate into my preparedness classes, and one of the things that was mentioned was using the ShakeOut earthquake early warning, and have that up on the phone so that when my participants in my class hear it, then they know what to do, and we can walk through steps to do that. And one of the other things that we were discussing a lot is trying just to get a little feedback if we have access to a ShakeOut trailer. A lot of areas have ShakeOut trailers, especially your bigger counties, and find out just from personal point of views of those who are disabled or who do have disabilities, what their fears are when they actually feel the earth shaking. So we had a really good session. I was very intrigued and a lot of things going through my mind now.
That's excellent. Thank you. Sammy, anything else from Sammy and Sarah?
Yeah, I wanted to add, I don't know if I'm getting the name right, but Margaret Vinci was really helpful in saying that, you know, she's very open to give talks about, you know, ShakeAlert systems, quick early warnings and other stuff. So if you want someone to come into your institution or into your space to talk, she's very much open to do that.
Margaret Vinci is a bigwig in the Earthquake Country Alliance. If you get Margaret to talk at your location, that's pretty great. That's you're lucky. That's correct. That's terrific. Yeah, that's awesome. So we've gone through the 4 breakout groups. Any general questions? Anything that you wish we had discussed that we didn't? Feel free to speak up or write your response in the chat box or question in the chat box. And of course, you know, there's always an opportunity that you may wake up in the middle of the night tonight with that burning question that you didn't think of during the webinar today. You say, I wish I'd asked them this question. I wish I'd asked Sammy this question. And so there's a way to get in touch with Sammy, and we'll make sure that you are able to ask him that question. So, well, with that in mind, we're going to move forward a bit. And of course, there are ways to connect with the Earthquake Country Alliance, and their websites are listed here. We showed them earlier during today's session, earthquakecountry.org and terremotos.org. Also, Twitter and other forms of social media. One thing that I'd like to ask you to do, one reason why we had a wonderful presentation today about libraries is because somebody in the survey told us this is something they would like to hear about. And so we ask if you could take a few minutes, and it looks like we're going to end here a little bit early today. How many sessions do you get on that actually end early? So we're here to please, right? And so please take our survey. The survey link is there. I know that Sharon's been putting it into the chat box. And of course, if you have questions, contact us at info@earthquakecountry.org. Again, any of the speakers today would love to talk with you if you have questions. They have a lot more to say. We were limited today in the comments that could be made. We look forward to you. First of all, I'd like to extend a great thanks to all of folks who participated as speakers. They put in a lot of time to prepare today, and we really appreciate that, their work. So thank you again for being a part of this today, speakers. And also all of you, taking 90 minutes out of your day is pretty significant. We know how busy you are. We know that you're probably pulled in 50 different directions any given day, running school programs. Some of you are running a gift shop. Some of you are also dealing with security and other issues, making sure the buses are parked in the right place. All of these things are roles that we all play. And some of those roles happen sort of all of a sudden, right? You're sort of plopped in that position. And we know that all of you on today are good at so many different things. And I think that one really important takeaway here is that we have lots of ideas about how to do ShakeOut. Folks at Earthquake Country Alliance and ShakeOut know a lot of ways to do ShakeOut. But we think the really creative ideas, the really great ideas, the inspirational ideas come from you. So please make sure to register for ShakeOut, register your event, reach out to us if you have any questions. We're here as a resource for you. One of the things we'd love to do around ShakeOut time is to promote your event that you're doing. You could either simply just post something to Twitter or to another social media channel that you might be interested in. Let us know what you're doing. We can go ahead and promote those tweets or retweet those tweets, whatever you think is appropriate, or reach out to us with images and some text, and we can go ahead and post for you. All of those things will work as ways to get the word out. Generally, what we try to do, of course, ShakeOut this year, the International ShakeOut Day is on the 20th of October, 10:20 a.m. If you have anything that you want to get to us that we can start promoting, please give us at least a week or so before your event to get the information out. If it happens to be on ShakeOut Day, remember, there are lots of things that are going to be happening on ShakeOut Day. And so, for example, on Southern California, one of the big ShakeOut events in a free choice learning environment is being held at a location called the Huntington Library. And the Huntington Library is not only an art museum, it's also a botanical garden, and it's also a place where a lot of other things happen. And so we'll be promoting that as part of our ShakeOut events in Southern California. And we'll get the word out about them. We'll also get out the word about what you're doing. But also what we can do is after your event is over, you can share your results, share your successes. This is all a place to do it. And we want to promote that and share the great things that all of you are doing. With that in mind, I'd like to just open it one last time. It's now about 5 minutes before the end of the session. Open it up to any last comments for the good of the order. If not, thank you again. And thanks to everyone for being here today, and go forth and shake out. Thank you.